The great question. Imagine waking up one day and realizing you don't recognize the person in the mirror. Not because your face has changed, but because your eyes no longer burn with desire, fear, wonder, or defiance. Instead, they blink back with a dull, practiced indifference. The shape of your life is familiar. The routines, the faces, the screens, the goals you once said you wanted. But something subtle and sacred has vanished. You don't remember when it happened. You didn't lose it in some fiery crisis or painful goodbye. You didn't fight for it, didn't scream when it slipped through your fingers. In fact, it didn't even make a sound. It was simply erased, slowly, comfortably. You were fine, and then you weren't even there. And this is the great lie that so many lives are built upon, that comfort is safety, that routine is peace, and that predictability is the highest form of maturity. But what if the exact opposite is true? What if your comfort zone, that bubble of ease and repetition you've built around yourself, is the quiet architect of your existential disappearance? Have you ever noticed how children burn with a wild kind of aliveness? How they leap into the unknown with eyes wide, not because they're reckless, but because they haven't yet learned to worship comfort? Somewhere along the way, that changes. The world teaches you to seek the path of least resistance. You're told to avoid risk, to secure the job, the mortgage, the same predictable morning latte. The culture applauds your consistency. Your parents sigh in relief. Your friends admire your stability. And yet, deep down, beneath the performance of having it together, something in you starts to shrink. You begin to say maybe later to the parts of yourself that still dream, that still ache for something real. You negotiate with your own soul, trading passion for permission, and slowly, you forget what you were even longing for in the first place. The comfort zone is seductive. It offers predictability in a chaotic world. It makes you feel safe, even when you're rotting. And worst of all, it asks for nothing dramatic in return. No great betrayals, no burning bridges, no blood spilled, just small silences, small compromises, a slow erosion of what once made you you. Not by force, but by consent. You signed the invisible contract the day you said, "This is good enough." But what if good enough is the most dangerous place to live? Now pause, not just mentally, but emotionally. Let that question settle. Who are you becoming by staying exactly where you are? Are you growing, or just hardening into a version of yourself that no longer needs to feel, stretch, or wonder? The tragedy is that you might not even notice the shift. You'll still smile at the same jokes, still show up on time, still meet deadlines, but your life will hum with a quiet, dissonant frequency, like a song played without soul, a dance with no rhythm, a conversation with no truth. There's a paradox at the center of human existence. The more we seek control, the more we lose touch with what makes life meaningful. The more we surround ourselves with comfort, the less we're required to confront ourselves. Comfort numbs the edges of our becoming, and when you stop becoming, you start disappearing. Not all at once, but slowly, softly, like a candle burning out while everyone else claps for the glow it used to give. And so we arrive at the great question, one that doesn't demand an immediate answer, but rather a total recalibration of your inner life. Is your comfort zone a sanctuary, or a slow velvet coffin? Have you created a life so safe that it's no longer alive? And if so, how would you even begin to feel that loss, when everything around you says you're doing fine? Let's go deeper, the hidden pro. Blame its psychological, philosophical roots. The comfort zone, despite its soft edges and familiar echoes, is not neutral. It is not merely a resting place. It is a slow process of forgetting how to feel fully, to risk deeply, to exist beyond the limits of what is merely tolerable. But to understand why we retreat into this mental and emotional cocoon, we must descend into the tangled roots of psychology, philosophy, and culture, into the very architecture of the modern human mind. Because the comfort zone is not just a personal preference, it's the product of systems that quietly convince you that comfort is the reward for obedience, and safety is the highest form of success. Carl Jung warned of the perils of the unexamined life, of what he called the persona, the mask we wear to function in society. This mask is composed of everything we believe we must be to be loved, accepted, and unbothered. But what happens when we mistake the mask for the self? Jung believed that underneath that mask lies the shadow, the repressed, disowned parts of the psyche that are inconvenient to the roles we've been assigned. And here's the tragedy. Your comfort zone is designed specifically to protect the mask and suppress the shadow. It rewards conformity, punishes chaos, and anesthetizes the inner voice that whispers, "This isn't who you are." And so, little by little, your identity begins to calcify, not around your authentic self, but around your ability to perform consistency. You start becoming the reliable one, the rational one, the agreeable one. But who decided that was the real you? Is it really a sign of wisdom to avoid emotional risks? Or have you just learned to fear the unknown so much that you call it maturity? The deeper truth is this. We choose comfort, not because it fulfills us, but because it protects us from the pain of uncertainty. And yet in shielding ourselves from uncertainty, we also shield ourselves from transformation. Nietzsche once wrote, Ho has a why to live, can bear almost any how. But most people never find their why because they never step outside the how they've been given. The routines, the job titles, the metrics of success, they're all part of a pre-written script that was handed to you long before you were old enough to question its meaning. And by the time you sense something is wrong, the machine is already in motion. You're already earning, producing, pleasing, optimizing. The soul's rebellion, if it ever rises, is smothered beneath a dozen good reasons not to listen to it. Arthur Schopenhauer would argue that much of our suffering comes not from pain, but from boredom, the dull ache of a life unchallenged, unlived. The comfort zone is drenched in boredom, but it disguises it well. Instead of facing the terror of spiritual stagnation, we scroll, we binge, we consume, we self-soothe with distraction. In this way, we're not just numbing pain, we're numbing purpose. Because real purpose doesn't come in silence. It comes in disruption. It comes in those moments of unbearable clarity where you realize the life you've built is too small for your soul. And what of Sartre? His philosophy of existentialism strips away all excuses. To him, existence precedes essence. We are not born with meaning. We must create it. But that creation is terrifying. It requires confronting your freedom, your responsibility, your radical capacity to choose. It is far easier to abdicate that power in exchange for a curated life where decisions are made for you by algorithms, traditions, or social norms. The comfort zone becomes the escape from the crushing weight of being free. You're not trapped, you're choosing to stay. Even modern psychology backs this up. Studies in neuroplasticity show that the brain is shaped by repetition. When you stay within your comfort zone, your neural pathways become rigid. You stop growing. Not just emotionally, but biologically. Your tolerance for ambiguity shrinks. Your creativity atrophies. Your emotional resilience weakens. Over time, you lose not only the willingness to try new things, but the capacity to imagine them. You become a well-decorated cage, polished, admired, quietly dying inside. But here's the subtle twist. The comfort zone doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like home. It feels responsible. It feels adult. This is its genius and its danger. The people around you will applaud your stability. No one will beg you to dream bigger. Society doesn't benefit from your full awakening. It prefers your compliance. The systems of economy, politics, and culture are built around the predictability of people who don't change. You are easier to market to, easier to manage, easier to forget when you do not evolve. This is not a conspiracy. It's a pattern reinforced by trauma, by reward systems, by fear of rejection. Viktor Frankl, in his harrowing reflections on life in concentration camps, concluded that even in the most horrific conditions, the human being can choose meaning. If a man can choose purpose in the midst of genocide, what's our excuse for choosing numbness in the midst of opportunity? Frankl's work suggests something vital, that identity is forged not in ease, but in struggle. And by shielding ourselves from the very friction that forms us, we risk becoming strangers to ourselves. So the problem is not merely comfort, it's what comfort costs. And that cost is not measured in money, time, or accolades. It is measured in self. Your forgotten dreams, your silenced voice, your untested courage. These are the bones buried beneath your easy days, and though they remain out of sight, they do not disappear. They haunt your stillness, they echo in your boredom, they rise in your quiet moments and ask, "Is this all there is?" But that voice is not your enemy. It is the ghost of who you were to become, and it is growing louder. The unseen consequences. You didn't notice the change because it didn't announce itself. There was no loud turning point, no dramatic breaking of glass, no billboard that said, "You're no longer alive inside." Instead, it happened quietly, over coffee, in the pause between emails, while agreeing to plans you didn't want. It happened every time you said it's fine, when it wasn't. Every time you laughed at a joke that bored you, nodded along to beliefs you didn't share, or smiled politely while your intuition twisted in protest. These aren't just habits, they're symptoms. They're what happens when the comfort zone stops being a tool for rest and becomes a graveyard for your authenticity. The unseen consequence of living in the comfort zone isn't just stagnation, it's erosion, not of your body or your job or your social standing, but of your being. You become someone who has the appearance of a life but none of the risk that makes a life worth living. The tragedy is that no one around you will point this out. In fact, they'll likely celebrate you. You've got such a good head on your shoulders, so reliable, always calm, never too emotional. But what they're really seeing is a well-trained ghost. A self that no longer resists, no longer questions, no longer fights to be seen. You become manageable, and slowly, invisibly, your soul begins to fold in on itself. Cognitive psychology offers us the language to understand this decay. The brain, as a predictive machine, thrives on familiarity. When exposed repeatedly to the same environment, same choices, same emotional stimuli, the brain no longer fires new connections. Novelty dies, and with it, your neuroplasticity begins to wane. You're not just living the same day on repeat, you are hardwiring yourself to believe that change is unsafe, even impossible. This neurological pattern and creates what researchers call a comfort loop, a feedback system where the known is continually chosen over the meaningful. And the longer you stay in this loop, the harder it becomes to imagine any other way of existing. Socially, this becomes even more sinister. We exist in a culture that rewards the illusion of stability more than the pursuit of meaning. Corporate life thrives on predictability. Relationships often settle into mutually agreed inertia. School systems prepare you not to explore, but to conform. Even leisure has been standardized. Watch this, buy that, scroll here. Any deviation from the norm is labeled dangerous, unstable, or irresponsible. The comfort zone isn't just yours. It's shared, enforced, institutionalized, and every time you choose to stay in it, you reinforce its borders for everyone else. Comfort, then, becomes a kind of silent contagion, a disease of the soul passed down in polite smiles and passive choices. And what does this do to identity? It hollows it out. Identity, at its core, is not what you say you are. It's the story you live. It's the friction between who you've been and who you're becoming. It's built in the fires of uncertainty, in the moments when you do the thing you don't feel ready for, when you say no to what's safe, because something inside you is still alive enough to want more. In the comfort zone, none of that happens. Instead, your identity becomes a collage of compromises. You become a summary of what you've survived, not what you've chosen. And eventually, you start to believe that the safest version of yourself is the true version. But the self knows. Even if your conscious mind has adapted to this flatline, the deeper parts of you have not. Your dreams become anxious, surreal. You wake up with inexplicable dread, irritated by small things, numbed by big ones. This is the psyche's rebellion. Your unconscious is trying to scream through the cracks in your perfect routine. The dreams you gave up on don't vanish, they ferment. The feelings you buried don't die, they mutate. Anxiety, depression, restlessness, these aren't random afflictions. Often, they are the soul's final attempts to get your attention, the symptoms of a life misaligned with its purpose. And on a larger scale, the consequences echo beyond the personal. A society filled with people addicted to comfort becomes easy to control, easy to distract, easy to pacify. Real change, cultural, political, spiritual, requires discomfort. It requires people who are willing to be unpopular, uncertain, and inconvenient. But when most people are deeply invested in never feeling discomfort, justice dies, innovation dies, truth dies. What remains is a mass of half-awake consumers mistaking sedation for peace. This isn't just about you. Your comfort zone might be someone else's prison. Your refusal to grow might be reinforcing their belief that change is impossible. The most dangerous part of this trap is that it wears the face of success. People in their comfort zones often appear outwardly successful. Careers are stable, marriages are intact, bank accounts are functional. But inwardly, there is a hunger no amount of money, sex, or validation can touch. That hunger is not weakness. It is your truth, starved. And yet, we shame this hunger. We silence it with productivity hacks, self-help platitudes, and another distraction. Anything but listen. But still it waits. In the quiet, in the moment before you fall asleep. In the part of you that mourns without knowing what it has lost. That, right there, is the cost of the comfort zone. It is not immediate. It is not loud. It does not ruin your life in a day. It merely asks you to stay. Just one more year. Just until things settle down. Just until you feel ready. And so you wait and wait and wait until one day you forget what you were waiting for. You forget who you were. Before it all began. The rebellion, how to break free. But what if, right now, you chose not to wait? What if you stopped waiting for the perfect moment, for someone to give you permission, for the signs to align or the fear to disappear? What if you understood, with the raw clarity of someone waking from a coma, that the fear is never going away? But that doesn't mean you have to obey it. Real change, the kind that doesn't just rearrange the furniture of your life, but tears the whole house down and rebuilds it from your own blueprints, begins with a single, terrifying act of rebellion. Stepping outside your comfort zone, not because you're ready, but because you're dying inside the cage. Rebellion doesn't always look like quitting your job, moving to a foreign country, or shaving your head at midnight. Sometimes it looks quieter, like saying no to something you've always said yes to, like asking yourself, what do I want? And refusing to edit the answer for social approval, like sitting in the discomfort of your own restlessness instead of numbing it with scrolling or snacks or Netflix. These small rebellions are the cracks through which the light gets in. They are the first signs that your identity is waking up from hibernation. Friedrich Nietzsche once declared, "Become who you are," not as a motivational catchphrase, but as a call to arms. Because becoming yourself is not a gentle process. It is violent. It is surgical. It requires you to examine every layer of who you've become and ask, is this mine, or was it given to me? Your values, your goals, your habits, even your personality, are they authentic or just adaptations to survive the environment you were placed in? The comfort zone thrives on unexamined identity. It fears introspection, because introspection leads to disobedience, and disobedience is the birthplace of selfhood. Carl Jung understood this intimately. He spoke of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole, of integrating the shadow, the unconscious, the forgotten. To individuate is to step out of the comfort zone and into the abyss of your own complexity. It's confronting not only who you are, but who you're not, and choosing, again and again, to live in alignment with what is real, not just what is easy. This means owning your contradictions, embracing your chaos, choosing truth over comfort even when the truth burns, especially when it burns. You break free by disrupting your patterns. Pattern interruption is not just a psychological tool, it is an existential necessity. If you always wake up at the same time, take the same route, say the same things, react the same way, you are not living, you are looping. And the only way out of a loop is through intentional disobedience. Try something new. Say something different. Make a decision your past self would never dare. The first time will feel like death. That's because a part of you is dying. The part that mistook stagnation for safety. Mourn it, then move. And yes, people will resist. Your comfort zone isn't just yours. It's tied to every relationship that has benefited from your predictability. When you grow, you force others to confront their own stasis. That makes them uncomfortable. Some will criticize you. Some will ghost you. Some will beg you, subtly or overtly, to shrink back to who you were. Don't. Growth requires disappointing people who preferred your silence. Let them be disappointed. You are not here to be manageable. You are here to be whole. This rebellion will also require you to stop outsourcing your intuition. In a world drowning in advice, courses, templates, and 10-step plans, the most radical thing you can do is listen to yourself. Your discomfort is a compass. Your boredom is a clue. Your envy is a map. Every uncomfortable emotion you've been taught to suppress is pointing you toward a part of yourself that wants to be known, integrated, and expressed. But you must sit with it. You must stop turning away. Real transformation begins not with action, but with attention. You cannot change what you refuse to feel. Take inspiration from those who've dared to step into the fire. Think of the artists, revolutionaries, spiritual seekers, even the ordinary people who said, "This isn't enough," and chose a different path, often at great cost. Not because they were fearless, but because they were more afraid of staying asleep. Viktor Frankl survived Auschwitz not by clinging to comfort, but by finding meaning in suffering. That's the real rebellion, not the escape from discomfort, but the redefinition of it. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is the price of awakening. Pay it gladly. And what happens when you do? When you step outside the known and let the cold wind of the unknown hit your face. At first you'll feel naked, exposed, vulnerable. But then something stirs, something ancient, a memory, not of your past but of your potential. You remember that you were never meant to live in a box, that your soul came here not to be safe, but to be sovereign. And that sovereignty is not given, it is seized. This is not a self-help message, this is a summons, to stand where you've always backed away, to speak when you usually nod, to create when you feel like hiding. The comfort zone taught you to wait for the right time, but the right time is a myth. The moment you decide to act, that is the right time. So start, anywhere, with anything. Ask yourself the forbidden questions. Take the imperfect leap. Change one thing, no matter how small, not because you know where it leads, but because staying where you are is no longer bearable. This is your rebellion, not against the world, but against your own extinction. The ultimate truth, the final, most powerful realization. At the end of this road, past the rebellion, past the broken patterns, past the trembling nights where you almost turned back, there is silence. Not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of recognition. The kind that follows a great unveiling when you finally stop running and sit face to face with the thing that's always been chasing you, yourself. And here is the truth, carved in the marrow of all great philosophies, whispered across time by mystics, warriors, and broken poets alike. You were never lost. You were just buried. Beneath layers of comfort, expectation, performance, and fear, you remained. You waited. And all this time, the part of you that couldn't be tamed, couldn't be flattened, couldn't be marketed, that was your real self. Not the polished one, not the safe one, the raw one, the ungoverned one, the one still breathing beneath the ruins. The ultimate truth is devastating in its simplicity. You are responsible for your aliveness, not society, not your parents, not your past, not your trauma. You. And in avoiding that responsibility, in choosing comfort over courage, you pay in the most precious currency there is. Time. Irreplaceable, non-refundable time. This is the horror that the comfort zone hides from you. Not just who you could have been, but what you will never get back. The days spent waiting, the years spent numbing, the dreams you didn't even allow yourself to grieve because you never fully believed you deserved them. Those don't return. And yet, there's beauty here too, because if you're still breathing, then time, while diminished, is not gone. There's still room for a reckoning. There's still fire left to claim. And now, perhaps for the first time, you understand why it's so hard to escape the comfort zone. Not because it's so good, but because what lies beyond it is so true. And truth demands everything. It won't let you pretend. It won't let you hide behind politeness or success. It won't let you define your worth by what you've accumulated or how. liked you are. Truth strips you down. It says, you're not a role. You're not a brand. You're not even your beliefs. You are the one who chooses. And what you choose, day after day, becomes you. This is what Jean-Paul Sartre meant when he said we are condemned to be free. The terrifying responsibility of existence is that you can become anything and that no one else can do it for you. That realization is so heavy that most people run back into their roles. They let the world decide for them who they should be. But you, if you've made it here, if you've truly sat with the weight of your freedom, then you know there is no going back. Even if you wanted to, the illusion is broken. The comfort zone is no longer comforting. It's a cage with the door wide open. And now the only question that matters is, will you step out? This is where the spiritual and the psychological collide. Because reclaiming your identity is not just about goals or transformation, it's about soul retrieval. It's about calling back the pieces of yourself you left behind in every moment you betrayed your truth for safety. Every moment you said, "This is fine," when your soul screamed otherwise. You must go back for those pieces, not to relive the pain, but to remind them that you're no longer afraid to be whole. And don't expect applause. There is no medal for becoming yourself. There are no marching bands when you stop people-pleasing. No standing ovation when you choose silence over small talk, solitude over toxic company, purpose over performance. But something deeper happens. Something sacred. Life begins to respond, not always with ease, but with alignment. People enter your life who speak your language. Ideas find you that feel like forgotten memories. You start to feel time differently, no longer as something to escape or manage, but as something to inhabit, fully, fiercely. And here's the miracle. When you reclaim your identity, you give others permission to do the same. You become the rupture in the pattern, the evidence that a different way is possible. A life becomes a mirror that says, "See, you don't have to die before you're dead." And in a world that rewards imitation, nothing is more powerful than someone who dares to be real. But don't get it twisted. This isn't the end. There is no final arrival. You will always be tempted to return to the comfort zone. Every level of growth has its own version of it. The difference now is that you'll recognize it. You'll feel it as that familiar lullaby of safety that no longer works. And when you feel it, you'll smile. Not because you're immune to it, but because now you know better. Now you know the price. And now you know nothing costs more than staying small. So where does this leave you? In the only place that ever mattered, the present. Not waiting, not preparing, not rehearsing, just being and choosing and becoming, again and again. The real you is not waiting at the end of some perfect plan. The real you is revealed in the fire of every choice that defies comfort in the name of truth. Burn the map, trust the compass, and walk forward. Not because the path is safe, but because staying still is no longer an option. This is the truth. Your comfort zone is slowly erasing your identity, and the only way to reclaim it is to step into the unknown, where you were always meant to be.